During week 1, the task was to create your own reality show. On Eminence, Holly quickly volunteered to be project manager, and on Dragon, Ivana took charge. Both project managers thought of the concepts: Mario Kart Amazing Race for Eminence and Death's Mansion for Dragon. Drama quickly stirred on Eminence after Cyndi calls out John Rich for slacking off and after Teresa does little to nothing. Furthermore, someone joins the chat as Nene and clears the room, attempting to frame her, in which Nene believes Cyndi committed this. After days with no contact from Holly, Cyndi takes charge and creates an entire new video for the project. Meanwhile on Dragon, Poppy, Ivana, and Kevin were doing a majority of the work, with Kevin creating the video for Dragon. In the end, Eminence won the task, and Cyndi received immunity for stepping up as temporary project manager, while Holly was away. In the final boardroom, Ivana brought back Kendra and Teresa for doing pretty much nothing, but in the end, Teresa was fired for never even showing up. Week 2. Project manager Cyndi decided to go with an elemental theme board for the Create a Mario Party 9 board task. Meanwhile on Dragons, Poppy was more of a project manager than the actual project manager, while Omarosa constructed the actual board with their concept of a mountain board. Kendra, the team's actual project manager, was on very little, and didn't even know she was project manager. On the Eminence, Holly was revealed to be the person who framed Nene, clearing the room again, but signed in as Holly's little sister rather than Nene. In the boardroom, Dragons redeemed themselves and won the task, but due to Kendra's hard performance, she was fired immediately. Also, Lil Jon was fired from Eminence for doing little to nothing. Week 3, the task was to create a script for a season of total drama. Cheryl stepped up for Eminence, and Cyndi suggested to do episode synopsis rather than an entire script, and the team agreed. On Dragons, project manager Poppy did little to nothing, with her team doing most of the work. Furthermore, many people were concerned about Brandy, who wasn't on throughout the entire task. Brandy even considered quitting, but in the end chose not to. Dragons did a full script, unlike Eminence, which ultimately led to their victory. Cheryl, who was unable to attend boardroom, suggested to Mr. Trump before she left to fire either Holly or Teresa, but Mr. Trump disagreed and fired John Rich, who didn't do anything at all. Week 4, the teams are switched up. Holly, Teresa, and Penn went to Dragons, while Omarosa, Jennifer, and Brandy went to Eminence. Nene finally stepped up as PM, and Cyndi came up with the concept of a random facts generator for Eminence for the task of creating an app for Apple. On Dragons, Teresa chose to be PM, and Holly, being the control freak that she is, came up with the concept of Wild Side, which showed you what animal resembles you, and didn't let anybody else do much work. On Dragons, there was a lot of drama between Holly and Ivana, who were arguing a majority of the time. In the boardroom, Eminence lost once again, and although Mr. Trump believes Nene failed as PM, Brandy volunteered to leave and therefore was fired. Week 5, the teams were tasked with hosting a video game party. Project manager Omarosa assigned Cyndi Lauber with creating the picture, while she also created the concept of a Toad and Toadette themed room. On Dragons, project manager Ivana thought of the concept of creating a room for each type of video game. The drama between Ivana and Holly continued to stir as Holly had many remarks about the concept, despite not having any better ideas. In the boardroom, even though Mr. Trump liked Eminence's room better, he gave the win to Dragons so he could fire Jennifer, who he did not want going into the final 10. Week 6, the teams were divided by strength. Cyndi was deemed strongest, with Nene, Holly, Poppy, and Cheryl coming in 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th respectively. Omarosa, Ivana, Kevin, Teresa, and Penn were proclaimed the weaker team. In that order, the strong team became Eminence, and the weak team became Dragon. The teams were tasked with advertising a Mario Kart to be sold. Cyndi stepped up once again, and decided to use sex appeal to sell her card. Meanwhile, Penn finally stepped up. With Holly gone, the Dragons team was finally peaceful and drama-free. However, on Eminence, for the first time since week 1, Holly was cooperative. In the end, Eminence's bike, the Rosalina Goddess, beat the Turbo Birdo, and Cyndi broke the losing streak for Eminence. In the final boardroom, Penn and Kevin were both fired. Penn, for failing the first time he ever stepped up, and Kevin, for never stepping up. Week 7. Being down 5-3, Dragons chose one person to be on their team, and Ivana chose Nini, being obsessed with her. The teams were tasked at creating a video game. Nini wanted to redeem herself after her horrible fail at being PM last time, so she stepped up. Holly became PM. She created an original game called Monster Mayhem. Meanwhile on Dragons, Nini assigned everyone to do 3 pictures. It took little time for Nini and Teresa to finish all 3, while Omarosa took a long time and Ivana didn't even do them. But Omarosa and Ivana were saved due to Dragons winning. This was a rejoiceful day, because Holly was fired after not even handing in the project, for always having excuses, and for getting horrible feedback from her team each and every week. Week 8, this was personally my favorite task. They were tasked at creating anything that raised awareness of Holly's suckiness. Eminence chose Cheryl as project manager, because she hasn't stepped up in a while. Dragon chose Omarosa for the same reason as Cheryl. Cyndi created 2 funny videos praising Holly in all of her ass-sucking glory, and Cheryl and Poppy both created a poster. The team had no drama and no problems, while on Dragons, they created nothing but posters, so Mr. Trump had no choice but to reward Eminence for their extra hard work. In the end, Omarosa was fired, mainly because she never experienced Holly, because they've never worked together, and was the wrong choice for a PM. Also, Nini, Ivana, and Teresa virtually did all of the work. Week 9, Cyndi the strongest and Poppy the weakest chose the teams. Cyndi chose Nini, Poppy chose Ivana. Nini chose Teresa and Poppy was stuck with Cheryl. The teams were tasked to create an Easter celebration. Eminence, under PM Teresa's reign, created a playful, appropriate video, while Dragons took a huge risk and decided to go with an adult party. The risk didn't pull off, and Eminence became the victors yet again. In the final boardroom, Poppy, the PM, chose Ivana to go back with her, after Ivana did nothing but Google chocolate. Ivana was fired over Poppy for doing nothing. Week 10 Part 1, Teams are gone. In an Apprentice first, everybody was to work individually. The task was to create 1 episode of Survivor, followed by an elimination order. Cyndi finished early with her 30-minute video, despite half of it being content from the actual show. Nini created a decent-sized video that was informative and had intense music. Cheryl was the only one who did not create a video, which could have been her downfall if her script had not been so amazing. Poppy created a video, but it was so funny that it strayed so much from Survivor. Teresa surprised everyone, creating an amazing script with a great plot and details that popped. In the end, it was between Cyndi and Poppy, but by a narrow margin, Cyndi moved on and Poppy was fired. Week 10 Part 2, Interviews. Cyndi and Teresa were extremely professional during the interviews, while Nini was very quick and to the point, and Cheryl was distant and messed up on many spelling issues. Cheryl was ultimately fired for not being as strong as Cyndi, Nini, and Teresa, and was given 4th. Directly after, Nini was fired for not doing very well on the interview, and then there were 2. Who will become the Apprentice? Cyndi Lauper or Teresa Giudice? Both of which have their strengths and weaknesses, but in the end, only one can be hired by Mr. Trump, and be the Apprentice.